When we all moved into my grandfather's house, it somehow fell to me to keep the old man's mind off of things. We would play casino over an old card table. He never let me win.
The movie starts out very enigmatically. You don't know where Jack is.
One time he put one of those tiny model trains into my hamburger. He was a practical joker. I broke my tooth on it.
The screen is somewhat dark, as you can see there, and it's basically just a headshot of Jack. And you don't find out that he's a radio monologue guy until 5-6 minutes later, because the monologue runs for 5 minutes. That's an interesting way to begin a film, maybe a very self-conscious way to begin a film, just to hold on a guy telling a story. By the way, that story is more or less a story that I wrote. And in fact, I had a class at college, and the first day of the class, the professor said, "I would like you to write something interesting about one of your relatives." It was more or less hoped for that we would write a Reader's Digest profile of a loving grandfather. Well, that's not the story I chose to write.
On Friday evenings, we had fish at our house. Every Friday. Not on religious grounds, but because Grandpa was a fish enthusiast. Keeps you from going blind, he would say, even though the bones always got caught in his throat.
When the teacher read it, he threw me out of the class and dispatched me to a thing called remedial writing, because he found this story so crazy that he felt I needed some kind of help.
Grandfather's eyes got wide. His face became contorted and red, his arms flailing about.
It's interesting because it was many years later that if there was any praise to come for these monologues, that it was one that I was rejected from English 1 and that I'd written so many years ago. Audiences did not know how to take this. I meant it to be amusing, but I have a strange sense of humor, so...
Put yourself in my shoes for once, if you would, please.
All the scenes that we shot in The King of Marvin Gardens, where you see where the characters are staying, those scenes were shot, indeed, in a hotel room. And there was no... I didn't have the money to build a set, and I was pretty high up, so we didn't get traffic sounds and that sort of thing. The birds that you see through the window, if you see those were birds where a guy was standing outside on the roof and throwing bread so the birds would come at the exact right moment. The window wouldn't look so blank and artificial. There were no clouds.
All I need to feel is that you're with me, you know, David? Like we got something solid between us.
I tried something stylistically in this movie. I tried in a discussion with László that the camera would never move, not even a quarter of an inch, on exterior shots. And I had a reason for this. First of all, there's the vanity of these ideas, the absurdity of them. You almost don't want to say anything about them because you don't want people to notice this kind of crap, but the idea was, well, we're shooting on a Monopoly stop, and everything moves very linearly. So it moves this way, it moves this way, it moves that way, and it moves this way. And therefore, I wanted to use still frames. And I said, László, I want to do that. He said, well, why do you want to do that? And I said, because I feel the geography of this film is too big. And I want to invent it. I want to cut it down to my size and my vision of it. So in scenes like, for example, on the beach, when Jack Nicholson and his brother are running along the beach, that's shot in one area of Atlantic City. And then when Bruce jumps into a frame and there's the whole background of Atlantic City behind him, that's shot in another place. And then when you come back and shoot Jack Nicholson, he's standing in an entirely different place. It was just something that we tried to do, and I had to carry the geography in my head that I had invented because nobody else knew how this was going to cut together. The script editor was going crazy. Well, wait a minute, we're in the same scene. Why aren't you shooting it right here? Well, no, I don't want that. I like the pier over there. In any event, I think László did an extraordinary job in this. László is one of the great, great cinematographers, and something else is that we all owe him so much. Maybe during the course of a documentary on BBS, you'll hear about the interrelationships between the actors, like Karen Black being in a little bit in Easy Rider and a big part of Five Easy Pieces and a part of A Safe Place and so on and so forth. And Ellen Burstyn being in The King of Marvin Gardens, but also being in The Last Picture Show. We were all kind of disoriented family. Pick that one and move her into this part of the family, and then take her from that part of the family, move her over into Marven Gardens. And one person who traveled through this and helped invent it was László. Ellen, after shooting Bruce, I didn't know what she should do. We talked about it. And I said, well, you know, the shower has been left running when Julie came running out. Maybe go and turn the shower off, because by this point you're berserk. You've just killed the man you love the most, and he's, in a sense, your husband. So Ellen went that way, and the camera went with her. This was all rehearsed. And she tries to turn off the water. And at a certain point, I think she's begging the shower to go off. Please go off. Please go off.
Oh, please go off.
And I wouldn't cut. I didn't cut. I just let that scene go on as long as it could.
I kept trying to turn off, and then I said, oh, please go off. In other words, I incorporated what was happening into the scene. And that brought me into the scene in a really special, deep way. And then I went out the door, and I had to walk towards the camera and sit down and play the rest of the scene. And I was thinking how the sound of the water running was going to interfere with his scene.
And so she came from way back where the shower was to the bathroom door and closed it, but it was wired with cables and lights and everything else.
Bob said, cut. I said, why did you cut? And he said, because the door. And I felt so bad, because I knew that that take would have been the one.
It was just an accident, and yet it provided something very touching and something completely away from the tragedy of a dying man in the other room and a suffering brother. I could have cut as soon as she started to leave the scene and gone back there, but because she prayed for the water to go off, and because it wouldn't, the accident gave me something extra. And I very much believe in allowing. You can't encourage accidents, but allowing and being observant of accidents that do take place in the course of filming.
Bob set up the circumstances where that was possible.
I felt, let these things happen. And the movie's a little bit about the confusion between water guns and real guns and accidents. I let the accidents occur.